The great hall of Zephyria Prime buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from over 200 worlds gathered for the emergency council session. Ambassador Kethvar stood at the center platform, his blue skin pale with worry. The tall alien's usually calm voice shook as he addressed the massive crowd. "Fellow beings of the Federation," Kethvar began, "we face a threat unlike any we have known in 3,000 years of peace." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. The Galactic Federation had ruled with wisdom and strength for longer than most species could remember. Wars were things of the past. Pirates and rebels were quickly dealt with by the mighty Federation fleet. What could possibly threaten their perfect order? Elder historian Veltara stepped forward, her ancient frame supported by a floating chair. The old creature's 6 eyes scanned the crowd with deep sadness. She carried a datapad that looked older than some of the younger species present. "My friends," Veltara said in her creaky voice, "I must share with you the forbidden archives, stories we hoped would never need telling again." The hall fell silent. Even the air recyclers seemed to quiet down as everyone strained to listen. Long ago, before our great Federation brought peace to the galaxy, there existed a species that brought terror to the stars. They called themselves humans. Laughter erupted from several sections of the audience. Commander Zixtal of the Rigel system stood up, his metallic voice ringing across the hall. "Elder Veltara, with respect, you speak of children's stories. Humans are myths, tales told to frighten young ones into behaving." More species voiced their agreement. The humans were legends, nothing more. Stories of impossible beings who could heal with one hand and destroy with the other. Creatures who showed mercy to enemies but never forgot a betrayal. They were contradictions that could not exist in the real universe. Veltara waited for the noise to die down. Her weathered face showed no anger, only deep concern. "I too hoped they were only stories," she said softly. "But our deep space monitors have detected something moving in the void. Ships unlike anything in our databases, energy signatures that match the ancient records." She activated her datapad. Holographic images filled the air above the assembly. The pictures showed massive vessels, sleek and dark, moving through space with deadly grace. Their design was alien to Federation eyes, yet somehow familiar from half-remembered nightmares. "These images were taken at the edge of our territory," Veltara continued. "Our monitoring stations report the same thing across 12 sectors. Something is coming." Meanwhile, millions of light years away, Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair aboard the UES Valiant. The human ship cut through space like a knife, its advanced engines making no sound in the vacuum. Jake's brown eyes studied the readings on his display screen. "Captain," called Lieutenant Lisa Grant from her communication station, "I'm picking up massive energy signatures from Federation space. Looks like they've built quite a civilization while we've been gone." Jake nodded slowly. His weathered face showed the stress of command, but his voice remained steady. "Any sign they've detected us yet?" "Negative, sir. Our stealth systems are holding. The Federation still uses the same sensor technology they had 3 centuries ago." Behind them, stretching into the darkness of space, floated the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled. 500 ships of various sizes, all bearing the blue and white colors of the United Earth Systems. At their head sailed the massive flagship UES Liberty, commanded by Admiral Nick Carter. Jake opened a communication channel to the Admiral. The older man's face appeared on the main screen, his gray hair and steady blue eyes showing the wisdom of someone who had spent his entire life preparing for this moment. "Admiral," Jake said, "we're approaching the outer rim of Federation space. Your orders?" Admiral Carter leaned back in his chair. Around him, the bridge of the Liberty hummed with quiet activity. His officers worked at their stations with the efficiency that came from years of training and preparation. "Maintain current course, Captain Morrison. It's time the galaxy remembered that humans are more than just stories." The Admiral's words carried weight that went far beyond their surface meaning. For 300 years, humanity had been exiled to the dark spaces between galaxies, cast out not for any crime, but because they represented something the Federation could not control. Humans were adaptable in ways that threatened the rigid order of galactic civilization. Back on Zephyria Prime, the council session continued. Admiral Thexion of the Federation Navy stood to address the assembly. His imposing form commanded attention as his deep voice boomed across the hall. "Even if these humans exist," the Admiral said, "they pose no real threat. Our fleet number's in the thousands. Our technology is the finest in the galaxy. If some remnant of this ancient species has survived in the dark, they will learn quickly that the Federation is not to be challenged. Many council members nodded in agreement. The Federation's military might was legendary. No force in known space could stand against their combined fleet. They had grown comfortable in their power, secure in their dominance. Veltara shook her head sadly. Admiral, you do not understand. The humans were never defeated in battle. They were never conquered or destroyed. They simply vanished one day, taking their technology and their knowledge with them. We celebrated their disappearance because we feared what they might become. What do you mean? Asked Ambassador Kethvar. Humans learn, Admiral. They adapt. They take what works and improve it. They see problems where others see only the way things have always been. In the 3 centuries since they vanished, while we have grown comfortable and set in our ways, they have been out there in the dark, learning, growing, preparing. The hall fell silent again as the weight of her words sank in. If the humans had truly survived their exile, what had they become during their long absence? What knowledge had they gained? What weapons had they built? High above Zephyria Prime, the first Federation patrol ships began powering up their engines. Orders went out across the galaxy for all available vessels to prepare for deployment. The great machine of the Federation military began to turn, ready to crush whatever threat emerged from the void. But in the darkness between the stars, humanity's ships continued their silent approach. They came not as conquerors seeking territory, but as the wrongfully exiled returning to claim their place. The galaxy would soon learn that the myths they had dismissed were about to become their new reality. Jake Morrison checked his chronometer. In less than 6 hours, the human fleet would reach Federation space. 300 years of exile were about to end, and the galaxy would discover that some legends were more dangerous when they turned out to be true. Deep Space Monitor Station Omega-7 hung in the void like a steel flower, its sensor arrays reaching out into the darkness. For 40 years, the station had watched the empty space beyond Federation territory, recording cosmic radiation and mapping distant stars. It was boring work, but someone had to do it. Commander Zakthu was reviewing the night shift reports when every screen on his bridge went black. The alien officer's forearms moved quickly across his control panels, trying to restore power. Emergency lighting bathed the command center in red as backup systems kicked in. "Sir," called his communications officer, "we've lost contact with Monitor Station Omega-7. All systems went dark simultaneously." Zakthu felt his stomach drop. Omega-7 was one of the most isolated outposts in Federation space. If something had happened there, help was days away. "Set course for Omega-7 maximum speed," he ordered, "and send a priority message to Fleet Command. Tell them we may have a situation." The patrol vessel Starwind jumped to hyperspace, racing toward the silent station. Zakthu tried not to think about what they might find when they arrived. 3 hours later, the Starwind dropped out of hyperspace near Omega-7. The station appeared normal from the outside. Its hull was intact, its solar collectors still tracked the local star, and its navigation lights blinked steadily. But it was completely silent. "Life signs?" Zakthu asked his science officer. "Negative, sir. No life forms detected anywhere on the station. But no signs of damage either. It's like everyone just vanished." Zakthu ordered a boarding party to investigate. What they found made no sense. The station was completely functional. Life support was running, computers were operating normally, and there were no signs of struggle or violence. The crew had simply disappeared. In the security office, they found something even more puzzling. The last few hours of surveillance footage showed impossible images. Ships unlike anything in Federation databases had approached the station. They moved with perfect coordination, their design sleek and predatory. The footage showed figures in advanced armor boarding the station. But then the recording ended. Meanwhile, aboard the human ship UES Thunder, Captain Amy Foster reviewed the intelligence her team had gathered from Omega-7. The small woman's green eyes scanned through files of Federation military positions and political structures. Her boarding party had done excellent work. "Sergeant Davis," she called to her security chief, "what's your assessment of their defenses?" Paul Davis shook his head in disbelief. "Captain, they're using the same shield frequencies we faced 300 years ago. Same weapon designs, same tactical approaches. It's like they stopped innovating the day we left." Specialist Kate Bell looked up from her computer station. "Ma'am, their computer security is a joke. I was able to download their entire military database without triggering a single alarm. They're not even trying to hide their weaknesses. Amy nodded grimly. The Federation had grown soft during humanity's exile. They had become so comfortable in their dominance that they had forgotten how to improve, how to adapt, how to grow. It would be their downfall. Light years away, Admiral Nick Carter stood in the war room of the UES Liberty. Around him, his senior officers studied holographic displays showing Federation positions throughout the galaxy. General Ron Clark pointed to several key systems with his laser pointer. "Admiral, their main fleet bases are here, here, and here," Clark said. "Standard defensive positions, exactly where our old intelligence said they would be. They haven't changed their strategy in centuries." Dr. Helen Ross, the fleet's chief scientist, shook her head in amazement. "Nick, it's like they've been frozen in time. While we've been developing new technologies to survive in the void, they've been sitting still. Our ships are faster, our weapons more precise, our computers decades ahead of theirs." Admiral Carter studied the data with concern rather than joy. He was a military man, but he took no pleasure in having such an overwhelming advantage. The Federation's complacency was going to make this confrontation very one-sided. "Doctor," he said, "are you certain about these readings?" "Absolutely. Our stealth technology alone makes us effectively invisible to their sensors. We could park a battleship next to one of their flagships and they wouldn't know we were there." The Admiral turned to his communications officer. "Lieutenant Grant, send a message to all ship commanders. Remind them that we're not here for conquest. We're here for justice. The Federation exiled us illegally, and we've returned to claim our rightful place in galactic civilization." Back on Zephyria Prime, the emergency council session had stretched into its second day. Reports were flooding in from across Federation space. 13 monitoring stations had gone dark in the past 24 hours. Patrol ships sent to investigate found the same thing at each location. Intact stations with missing crews and no signs of struggle. Admiral Thexion paced back and forth in front of the assembled representatives. His usually perfect uniform was wrinkled from lack of sleep and his voice showed strain. "We're dealing with an organized force," he announced. "Whatever this is, it's not random pirates or equipment failures. Someone is systematically taking out our early warning network." Ambassador Kethvar raised a thin blue hand. "Admiral, do you still believe these are not the humans from the old stories?" The military commander stopped pacing. For the first time since the crisis began, he looked uncertain. "I don't know what to believe anymore," he admitted. "But I do know that in 6 hours, the First Fleet will be in position to intercept whatever is coming out of the void. 800 ships of the line, the finest vessels in the galaxy. Whatever threat we're facing, it ends here." Elder historian Veltara watched the proceedings with growing dread. She had spent her long life studying the ancient records, and she knew something the younger officers did not. The humans had never been defeated because they were never predictable. They adapted their tactics to every situation, turning enemy strengths into weaknesses. High above the planet, Federation ships began moving into defensive positions. The massive vessels looked impressive as they formed up in traditional battle formations. Their crews were confident and well-trained, ready to demonstrate Federation superiority to whatever upstart force dared challenge their authority. But at the edge of the system, human sensors watched every move. Captain Morrison aboard the Valiant transmitted the Federation positions to Admiral Carter, who smiled grimly as he reviewed the enemy formation. "They're arranging themselves exactly as our tactical computers predicted," he told his staff. "Same formations, same approaches, same weaknesses we exploited 3 centuries ago." The Admiral opened a channel to all human ships. His words were calm but carried the weight of history. "All vessels, this is Admiral Carter. In 1 hour, we emerge from hyperspace at the edge of Federation core territory. Remember, we are not the aggressors here. We are the wrongfully exiled returning home. But if the Federation chooses to fight rather than negotiate, we will show them why humanity was never conquered." Across the human fleet, 500 ships prepared for the moment that would change galactic history. The Federation was about to learn that some myths were far more dangerous when they turned out to be real. Admiral Croiseth stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dawn, watching as the First Fleet moved into position. 800 Federation vessels stretched across space in perfect formation, their weapons powered and shields raised. The massive Admiral's confidence radiated through his crew as they prepared to face the unknown threat. "All ships report ready for battle." "Sir, announced his tactical officer. Croiseth nodded with satisfaction. The First Fleet represented the finest military force in the galaxy. Their ships were massive, their crews experienced, and their firepower overwhelming. Whatever had been attacking their monitoring stations was about to learn the price of challenging Federation authority. Long-range sensors? Any sign of the enemy? He asked. Negative, sir. Space appears empty in all directions. The Admiral frowned. His intelligence reports indicated that a large force was approaching from the void, but his sensors showed nothing. Perhaps the threat had been exaggerated. Perhaps the monitoring stations had simply suffered equipment failures, then space itself seemed to tear open. 500 human ships emerged from hyperspace simultaneously, appearing in perfect formation at the edge of the system. The Federation sensors screamed warnings as energy signatures unlike anything in their databases flooded their displays. The human fleet was smaller than the Federation force, but their ships moved with a precision that was almost supernatural. Captain Jake Morrison watched from the bridge of the UES Valiant as the Federation fleet reacted to their arrival. The alien ships scrambled to adjust their positions, their formations breaking apart as commanders tried to respond to the unexpected threat. Captain, called Lieutenant Grant. We're receiving a transmission from the Federation flagship. Put it through, Jake replied. Admiral Croiseth's image appeared on the main screen. The alien's face showed confusion and growing concern as he spoke. Unknown vessels, you have entered Federation space without authorization. Identify yourselves immediately and prepare to be boarded for inspection. Jake smiled sadly. Even now, faced with overwhelming evidence, the Federation refused to believe what they were seeing. He opened a communication channel that reached every ship in both fleets. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth Systems vessel Valiant, he said calmly. I represent the human species, which your ancestors exiled from this galaxy 300 years ago. We have returned to claim our rightful place among the stars. The effect of his words was immediate. Across the Federation fleet, officers stared at their screens in shock. The mythical humans were real, and they had returned with a vengeance. Some ships began powering additional weapon systems, while others seemed frozen with uncertainty. Admiral Croiseth recovered from his shock quickly. Impossible. Humans are legends, nothing more. I don't know who you are, but you will surrender immediately or face the consequences. I'm afraid surrender is not an option, Jake replied. We tried peaceful coexistence once. Your people chose exile over cooperation. Now we offer you one chance to avoid bloodshed. Stand down your weapons and prepare for negotiations. The Federation Admiral's face darkened with anger. You dare threaten the Federation? We have 800 ships against your 500. Your technology cannot match our firepower. Admiral, Jake said quietly. You're about to learn how much we've improved during our exile. Croiseth cut the communication and turned to his weapons officer. All ships prepare to demonstrate Federation superiority. Target their lead vessels and fire warning shots across their formation. 3 Federation destroyers moved forward and fired their main batteries. Brilliant beams of energy lanced across space, passing just in front of the human ships. It was a display of power meant to intimidate the enemy into surrender. Captain Ben Wright watched from the bridge of the UES Thunder as the Federation weapons fire illuminated space around his ship. His crew remained calm, their training taking over as they prepared to respond. Return fire? Asked his weapons officer. Negative, Wright replied. Defensive demonstration only. Target their weapon systems but do not harm their crews. The Thunder's advanced targeting computers locked onto the 3 Federation destroyers. New weapon technology developed during humanity's exile allowed for surgical precision impossible with older designs. 3 precise energy beams struck the Federation ship simultaneously. The results were immediate and shocking. All 3 destroyers went dark as their weapon systems were completely disabled. Their crews were unharmed, but their ships were effectively helpless. The surgical precision of the attack left Federation observers stunned. Admiral Croiseth stared at his tactical display in disbelief. His 3 destroyers showed minimal damage, but their weapons were completely offline. How had the humans targeted specific systems with such accuracy? Across both fleets, officers watched their screens with growing understanding. The humans had not returned as refugees seeking mercy. They had returned as a superior force capable of ending the battle whenever they chose. Dr. Helen Ross's voice suddenly filled the communication channels of every ship in both fleets. The human scientist's calm tone carried across space as she began to speak. "People of the Federation," she said, "for 300 years you have lived with a lie. Your ancestors told you that humans were dangerous myths, creatures too violent and unpredictable to coexist with civilized species. This was not true." Federation crews listened in stunned silence as the human scientist continued. "Humans were exiled not because we were violent, but because we represented change. Your civilization had reached a comfortable equilibrium, a perfect balance of power among your species. Humans threaten that balance because we adapt, we innovate, we refuse to accept that things must always be done the same way." Admiral Croiseth tried to cut off the transmission, but his communication systems would not respond. Somehow the humans had taken control of Federation communication networks. "Your ancestors feared that human adaptability would upset their carefully ordered galaxy. Rather than learn from us, rather than grow and change together, they chose to cast us into exile. They told you we were monsters to justify their actions." Dr. Ross paused, letting her words sink in across both fleets. "We spent 3 centuries in the void between galaxies, learning to survive in conditions that would destroy most species. We developed new technologies, new ways of thinking, new approaches to every problem we faced. We became everything your ancestors feared we might become, but we never forgot the lessons of cooperation and justice." Admiral Carter's voice joined the transmission from the flagship Liberty. "Federation vessels," the Admiral said, "we do not wish to conquer your civilization. We do not seek to rule your worlds or enslave your people. We seek only what was always rightfully ours, a place at the table of galactic civilization." The Admiral's tone became harder, more commanding. "But if you choose to fight us, if you refuse to acknowledge our right to exist among the stars, then you will discover that exile has made us stronger than your worst nightmares imagined. We offer you one final opportunity for peace. Power down your weapons and prepare to receive our diplomatic representatives." Admiral Croiseth looked around his bridge at his stunned crew. His ships were outmatched by technology he could not understand. His weapons had proven useless against human defenses. But 3,000 years of Federation dominance could not be surrendered without a fight. "All ships," he commanded, "prepare for full-scale assault. If these humans want a war, we'll give them one they'll never forget." Space erupted into violence as 800 Federation ships opened fire simultaneously. The galaxy was about to learn whether legends could bleed. Space blazed with weapons fire as 800 Federation ships unleashed everything they had at the human fleet. Energy beams, missile salvos, and particle cannons created a deadly light show that could be seen from distant planets. Admiral Croiseth watched with grim satisfaction as his overwhelming firepower swept toward the smaller human force. "Direct hits on multiple targets," reported his tactical officer. "Enemy shields are taking heavy damage." But as the weapon effects cleared, the human ships remained in perfect formation. Their advanced shield technology had absorbed the massive bombardment without apparent difficulty. Not a single human vessel showed signs of damage. Captain Amy Foster watched the Federation attack from the bridge of her ship, the UES Ranger. Her crew worked calmly at their stations as energy blasts exploded harmlessly against their shields. "Weapons are fully charged, Captain," announced her tactical officer. "Target their engines and weapon systems only," Amy ordered. "Disable, don't destroy. We're here to win a war, not commit genocide." The human counterattack was swift and precise. Each human ship targeted multiple Federation vessels simultaneously, their advanced computers calculating firing solutions with mathematical perfection. The Federation ships were larger and more heavily armed, but they moved like slugs compared to the swift human vessels. Captain Ben Wright maneuvered the UES Thunder through the enemy formation like a dancer, his ship's engines far superior to anything the Federation possessed. His weapons officer targeted 5 Federation cruisers in rapid succession, each shot precisely calibrated to disable rather than destroy. "Enemy vessels dead in space, sir," the officer reported. "Their crews are unharmed, but their ships are helpless." Similar reports came from across the human fleet. Federation ships that had ruled the galaxy for centuries were being systematically disabled by an enemy. They could barely track on their sensors. The humans moved too fast, hit too precisely, and coordinated their attacks with impossible efficiency. Admiral Croiseth stared at his tactical display in growing horror. In less than an hour, he had lost over 300 ships. Not destroyed, simply neutralized. The humans could have slaughtered his crews, but they chose mercy even in the midst of battle. "Sir?" called his communications officer. "We're receiving surrender requests from 14 fleet captains. Their ships are disabled and requesting rescue." The admiral's confidence crumbled as he realized the truth. The Federation fleet was not just being defeated, it was being humiliated. The humans were demonstrating that they could end the battle whenever they chose. Meanwhile, at Federation headquarters on Zephyria Prime, the Emergency Council watched the battle through long-range sensors. The holographic display showed Federation ships going dark one by one, while the human fleet remained untouched. Council member Dextra stood up, her voice carrying across the silent chamber. "We must negotiate," she declared. "The humans have proven their superiority. Continuing this fight will only result in more casualties." But Admiral Thexion slammed his fist on the council table. "Never. The Federation does not surrender to anyone. I'm ordering the 2nd and 3rd fleets to converge on the battle zone. We'll overwhelm them with sheer numbers." Elder Historian Veltara shook her head sadly. "Admiral, you still don't understand. The humans are not trying to conquer us. They're trying to teach us. Every ship they disable instead of destroying is a lesson in mercy. Every life they spare is proof that they seek justice, not revenge." Back in the battle zone, Admiral Carter opened a communication channel to the remaining Federation ships. "Federation vessels," he said calmly. "You have fought bravely, but this battle is over. We have disabled 70% of your fleet without taking a single life. Power down your weapons and we will provide assistance to your damaged ships." Admiral Croizeth found himself facing an impossible choice. He could continue fighting and watch his remaining ships get picked apart by an enemy they couldn't touch. Or he could surrender to creatures that 3 hours ago he had believed were myths. "Admiral," his tactical officer called out, "enemy ships are moving to assist our disabled vessels. They're providing medical aid and emergency repairs." The Federation admiral watched in amazement as human ships moved among his helpless vessels, offering aid instead of delivering killing blows. It was the behavior of honorable warriors, not the mythical monsters of legend. Captain Morrison's voice came across the communication channels. "Federation crews," he announced. "Your governments told you we were monsters who would show no mercy. Instead, we offer you medical assistance and safe passage home. We fight not for conquest, but for the right to exist among the stars." On dozens of disabled Federation ships, crews watched human rescue teams boarding their vessels. The humans wore advanced armor, but their movements were careful and non-threatening. They carried medical supplies and repair equipment instead of weapons. Lieutenant Lisa Grant worked alongside Federation medics to treat injured crew members aboard a disabled cruiser. The human officer's gentle efficiency impressed the alien doctors, who had expected human savagery based on their legends. "Your medical technology is remarkable," commented the Federation ship's doctor. "These healing techniques are far beyond anything we possess." Lisa smiled as she treated a wounded officer. "We've had 300 years to improve. Isolation teaches you to value every life." The news of human mercy spread quickly through the Federation fleet. Ship after ship began powering down their weapons, their crews no longer willing to fight an enemy that showed such honor and victory. But the real shock came when human ships began sharing their advanced medical technology with disabled Federation vessels. Crew members who should have died from their injuries were saved by human doctors using techniques that seemed almost magical. Admiral Carter watched as the last Federation ships surrendered. The battle was over, but the real work was just beginning. Proving human military superiority had been easy. Convincing the galaxy to accept human participation in galactic civilization would be much harder. "All ships," he broadcast to his fleet, "begin rescue and repair operations. Every Federation crew member gets home safely. Every disabled ship gets towed to the nearest friendly port. We came here to prove a point, not to slaughter our neighbors." Captain Wright coordinated the rescue efforts from the Thunder. Human ships moved among the wreckage like guardian angels, their crews working tirelessly to save Federation lives. It was a demonstration of human values that would be remembered across the galaxy. On Zephyria Prime, the Emergency Council watched in stunned silence as reports came in from the battle zone. The humans had achieved total victory without killing a single enemy crew member. Their advanced technology was matched by an equally advanced sense of honor and mercy. Council member Dextra addressed the assembly with tears in her eyes. "Fellow beings," she said, "we have witnessed something unprecedented, a superior force showing mercy to those who attacked them. Perhaps it is time we listened to what the humans actually want instead of fearing what our ancestors told us they were. Admiral Thexion stared at the tactical displays, his worldview crumbling around him. Everything he had believed about human nature had been proven wrong in a single battle. The monsters of legend had returned as honorable warriors offering partnership instead of demanding submission. As Federation rescue ships arrived to collect their disabled vessels, they found human crews working alongside Federation survivors. The two sides that had been shooting at each other hours before were now cooperating to save lives and repair damage. Admiral Carter stood on the bridge of the Liberty, watching the rescue operations with satisfaction. The first phase of humanity's return was complete. They had proven their military superiority beyond any doubt. Now came the harder task of building a new relationship with the civilization that had exiled them. The galaxy was about to learn that the real power of humanity lay not in their advanced weapons, but in their ability to turn enemies into allies through honor, mercy, and justice. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Zephyria Prime, and the galaxy was still adjusting to its new reality. The Great Council chambers had been redesigned to accommodate not just the traditional Federation species, but dozens of previously unrepresented worlds that had been given voices for the first time. Ambassador Lisa Grant stood at the central podium, no longer wearing a military uniform, but dressed in the simple blue robes of a diplomatic representative. The woman who had once coordinated human military communications now worked to build bridges between species that had been enemies just months before. Fellow representatives, Lisa began, addressing the packed chamber. 6 months ago, humanity returned to a galaxy that believed us to be myths. Today we gather not as conquerors and conquered, but as partners in building a better future for all our peoples. The audience listened with respectful attention. The old Federation Assembly had been dominated by the voices of powerful military leaders and wealthy trade barons. The new Galactic Council included farmers, teachers, scientists, and ordinary citizens from hundreds of worlds. Council member Dextra, now serving as president of the Reformed Assembly, nodded approvingly. The brave alien who had first called for negotiations had become a key architect of the new galactic government. Her vision of cooperation instead of domination was finally becoming reality. "Ambassador Grant," she said, "please share with us the progress of the integration programs." Lisa activated a holographic display showing trade routes, military positions, and development projects spanning the galaxy. Where once there had been rigid Federation control, now there was voluntary cooperation between independent worlds. "The results speak for themselves," Lisa continued. "Trade between human and non-human worlds has increased by 400%. Joint research projects have produced breakthroughs in medicine, agriculture, and space travel. Most importantly, the number of conflicts between member worlds has dropped to 0. In the military section of the chamber, Admiral Nick Carter sat beside his former enemy, Admiral Thexion. The two officers had spent months working together to restructure galactic defense forces, combining Federation experience with human innovation. "Admiral Thexion," Lisa called, "would you share your assessment of the new defense arrangements?" The alien admiral stood, his bearing showing none of the arrogance that had once defined Federation military leadership. His defeat at human hands had taught him humility, but working alongside human officers had taught him something more valuable: the power of adaptive thinking. 6 months ago, "I believed the Federation military was invincible," he admitted. "I was wrong. But more than that, I was wrong about what military strength actually means. The humans have taught us that true security comes not from the ability to destroy enemies, but from the wisdom to turn enemies into friends." He gestured to a display, showing joint human Federation patrol fleets. "Our combined forces now protect trade routes more effectively than the old Federation ever could. Human tactical flexibility combined with Federation experience has created a defense network that adapts to new threats instead of simply overwhelming them." Admiral Carter nodded respectfully to his former opponent. The human military leader had insisted that former Federation officers retain positions of authority in the new structure. Integration, not replacement, had been humanity's approach to galactic reconstruction. Dr. Helen Ross stood to address the assembly from the scientific section. The brilliant researcher who had once helped plan humanity's return now coordinated the largest scientific exchange in galactic history, the Scientific cooperation initiative has exceeded all expectations, she announced. Human adaptive technology combined with Federation theoretical knowledge has produced advances neither of our civilizations could have achieved alone. She activated displays showing medical breakthroughs, agricultural improvements, and technological innovations that were already transforming life across hundreds of worlds. The Krell plague that has devastated the Outer Rim worlds for decades has been completely cured using modified human medical techniques. Federation energy research combined with human engineering has produced power systems that are twice as efficient as previous designs. Most importantly, we have established joint research stations where young beings from all our species work together to solve problems none of us could face alone. The chamber buzzed with excited conversation as representatives realized the scope of what cooperation had accomplished. In 6 months, the galaxy had made more scientific progress than in the previous century. Captain Jake Morrison entered the chamber wearing the new uniform of the Galactic Exploration Corps. His ship, renamed the UES Pioneer, now carried a mixed crew of humans and aliens dedicated to exploring the unknown regions beyond mapped space. Captain Morrison, called President Dextra, "Tell us about the expansion of our horizons, Jake," smiled as he activated star charts showing newly discovered systems and contacted civilizations. The Exploration Corps has made contact with 47 new species in the past 6 months, he reported. Unlike the old Federation expansion through conquest, we approach each new civilization as potential partners. We share our knowledge freely and learn from theirs in return. He highlighted several systems on the star map. The Vorth civilization has developed biotechnology that could revolutionize agriculture throughout the galaxy. The crystal beings of Nexus 7 have shown us energy storage techniques we never imagined. Each new contact makes all of our civilizations stronger. In the back of the chamber, Captain Amy Foster watched the proceedings with quiet satisfaction. Her ship, the UES Guardian, now served as a training vessel where young officers from dozens of species learned to work together. The boarding specialist who had once led raids on Federation stations now taught cooperation instead of conquest. President Dextra stood to address the assembly for the final time that day. 6 months ago, our galaxy stood on the brink of a war that could have destroyed everything we had built. Instead, we discovered that our greatest enemy was our own fear of change. The humans have shown us that strength comes not from dominance but from cooperation, not from conquest but from partnership. She looked around the chamber at representatives who months before had been bitter enemies. Today, we vote on the final charter of our new galactic alliance, not a federation ruled by the strong, but an alliance where every voice matters, every world contributes, and every being has the chance to reach their full potential. The vote was unanimous. Later that evening, Captain Morrison stood on the observation deck of the orbital shipyard above Earth. Through the transparent aluminum windows, he could see the construction of the next generation of exploration vessels. These ships bore the symbols of dozens of species, built with combined knowledge and shared purpose. Commander Kate Bell joined him at the window. The former specialist had earned her own command and would soon take her new ship into the unknown regions beyond the galactic rim. "Hard to believe it's only been 6 months," she commented, watching alien and human workers cooperating on the construction projects. Jake nodded. Sometimes change happens slowly over centuries. Sometimes it happens in a single moment when someone chooses cooperation over conflict. Through the shipyard's corridors, young beings of many species hurried to their training sessions. Humans worked alongside Krell engineers, Federation tacticians learned adaptive thinking from human instructors, and former enemies planned joint missions to explore the unknown. The children who would grow up in this new galaxy would find it hard to believe that their species had ever been enemies. They would take cooperation for granted in a way their parents never could. They would reach for the stars not as conquerors but as explorers, not as separate species but as partners in the greatest adventure of all. Admiral Carter reviewed the final reports from his office aboard the Liberty. The ship that had once led humanity's return to the galaxy now served as headquarters for the new Galactic Defense Force. His desk was covered with cooperation agreements, joint training programs, and exploration proposals that would have been impossible under the old Federation system. A message arrived from one of the newest members of the Alliance, A species that had been contacted just days before. They were requesting human medical assistance for a plague affecting their homeworld, offering their own agricultural knowledge in return. The Admiral smiled as he approved the mission. This was what humanity had truly returned for. Not conquest or revenge, but the chance to be part of something larger than themselves. The galaxy that had once feared human adaptability now celebrated it as the key to everyone's future. Outside his window, the stars beckoned with infinite possibilities. The age of isolation was over. The age of cooperation had begun. And somewhere in the void between galaxies, new civilizations waited to be discovered by the partnership of species that had learned to turn their differences into strengths. The myths had become reality. But reality had proven far more wonderful than any legend.